Minister, wenn Sie diese Männer nicht bewaffnen können, dann können Sie nicht kämpfen.
Ich wiederhole, ich kann da kein Mitgefühl empfinden. Das Volk hat dieses Schicksal selbst gewählt. Geben Sie sich keine Illusionen hin. Wir haben das deutsche Volk ja nicht gezwungen. Es hat uns selbst beauftragt. Jetzt wird Ihnen eben das Hälschen durchgeschnitten.
Hello, net Sie kennen zu lernen. Downfall is a 2004 film about the very final days of Hitler and the upper echelons of the Nazi regime, based on eyewitness testimony. It features a fantastic performance from Bruno Ganz as Mr. H himself, as well as a uniquely nauseating, riveting build-up of tension. But I think what makes the film remarkable is that, although it is mostly set over a narrow timescale of really just a few weeks, its depiction of Hitler's downfall offers tremendous insight into his rise and his allure. It dares to show Hitler not as an unknowable insane monster, but as a terrible human who has succeeded and failed because of his own narcissism and the capitulation of those around him. It is, I think, one of the most poignant, hard-hitting depictions of narcissism in the medium. Directed by Oliver Hirschbiegel and written by Bernd Eichinger, Downfall's rendition of Hitler's cheery goodbye draws from numerous eyewitnesses' testimonies, as well as the books Inside Hitler's Bunker by historian Joachim Fest and Until the Final Hour, written by his last private secretary, Traudl Junge, in 1947, but not published until 2002. In the film, Junge is played by Alexandra Maria Lara, and is the most persistent character in Downfall. Although it is by no means limited to her perspective, she is undeniably important as a vector of information and as a representation of naive but willing collaboration to the Nazi regime. This, I think, is cemented by her own statements at the very beginning and end of the film, extracted from the 2002 documentary Im Toten Winkel, a very frank 90-minute interview with her just before her death at 81 years old.
Habe ich eigentlich gespürt, dass das keine Entschuldigung ist, dass man jung ist, sondern dass man auch hätte vielleicht.
On a technical level, the film is very restrained. Its sad score is used especially sparingly. Its camera work is considered but muted, and its brief action is effective, but of a small scale. It never feels as though Downfall is trying to wow its audience with the way it is made, but rather its subject matter, and its restraint, I think, allows it to do just that. Its narrative being limited to mostly the Führerbunker and central Berlin, and its absence of wider depiction of the appalling crimes of the Nazis, allows the film to be very focused, not so much on the actions of the perpetrators, but their mindset. The opening interview extract aside, the film starts with Junge becoming Hitler's private secretary in 1942. Very early on, we jump ahead to April of 1945, and there's no going back. The film depicts Junge in a somewhat empathetic light, but she is not the hero. The heroes are mostly not on screen. Rather, she is the least responsible in the bunker out of the cadre of opportunists and ideologically devoted who surround the real subject, or rather, I argue, subjects. I think that one way of looking at Downfall is that it is a myriad of stories and struggles all swirling around the plug hole of Hitler and the story of Hitler himself, but also, perhaps, that it's at least as much, really more so, about the idea of Hitler, the social mechanism and malfunction of him, the magnetism of him, as much as the flesh and bone person. He is portrayed as multifaceted. He oscillates between anger, denial, fantasy, even brief moments of tenderness, but most of all he is defeated. It depicts him not as a supernatural demon, but as a person. One of the perennial criticisms of Downfall is that it humanizes Hitler, but he was human, And although you might say he was historically unique, he was not a unique human. This doesn't mean Downfall sympathizes with him, quite the opposite. By depicting him as what he was, a self-loathing, filled with hatred, and above all, selfish human, devoid of empathy that isn't purely performative, it goes against the idea of mythical evil, and it is far more impactful because of it. This is surely a deliberate choice of Ganz and Hirschbiegel. They're not depicting him as a person who, like other people, has fears and wants and ideas beyond do the most evil thing possible because they want the audience to like him, but because they want to portray him as what he was. A malignant narcissist human who did deeply evil things, not a demonic cutout. This is where I think Downfall is truly powerful. It says nothing of Hitler's rise directly, but from his behaviour and the responses of the people around him, even in historical isolation, i.e., what's a Hitler, we can extrapolate what has happened. He has charmed a nation. Shouting for Fegelein, no, but the admiration of those around him speaks to that. He has convinced them that he knows best. He has convinced them that he should not be questioned. He has convinced them to ignore what they see and hear, and that only he can deliver the truth. He has surrounded himself with yes-men, some of whom are his ideological acolytes, most of which stay, some of whom are opportunists, most of which flee. And most of all, he has convinced them he cares about them, about Germany, about the Aryan race, but in reality, he only cares about these things, and the people around him, as an extension of himself.
Dass ich mir im Augenblick der Gefangennahme durch die Russen das Leben nehme.
Hitler hat Ihnen das Versprechen abgenommen, sich zu töten?
Wahrscheinlich wollte er nicht, dass ich in eine Lage geriete, wo ich unter Zwang und Bedrohung etwas Ungünstiges über ihn aussage.
These checkboxes of narcissism, of extreme, toxic vanity, lack of empathy, and manipulation are not outrightly explained as being such, but I think they're the backbone, not necessarily of the simple story, Hitler's losing, Hitler loses, but of the message.
Aber schonen Sie doch das Volk, mein Führer.
Wenn mein eigenes Volk an dieser Prüfung zerbricht, dann hätte er nichts anderes verdient. Es würde sein eigenes Schicksal sein, das er sich selbst zuzuschreiben hat.
And with this examination of his self-loathing, seething vanity, and his disinterest and disgust at those who cannot serve him and the truth that does not suit him, there is an equally discomforting portrayal of those around him. You might call it a portrait of narcissistic demand and narcissistic supply. Even in the final days, as Berlin is dismantled by Georgy Zhukov, his circle sticks with him mostly right until the end, even when they must have known, in the logical remnants of their brains, that the war was lost 1-2 years ago. All is well and good in the narcissist circle when things are going their way, but when things turn, because he has eliminated any dissension, they don't know what to do other than wait for further instructions from someone who has already led them to their destruction. With his most beloved disciple having apparently secured that spot because of his utmost loyalty and willingness to repeat everything Hitler says with absolute conviction, and with so many of the Führerbunker convinced it is better to die than live without National Socialism, Downfall often feels like it's a grimly grounded portrayal of a death cult. With the historical context that, at this time, Hitler had been in power for a little more than 12 years, I think it is ever more frightening. I think the real horror of Downfall is that, even with just the pathetic ending of an empire that never was, it offers a window into a recurring human flaw, or cacophony of flaws really, where these people were convinced not only to destroy others, but themselves, in so little time, not by the devil, but by a man. And there we are. Thank you very much for watching, and now for something not entirely different, but much, much stupider. Enjoy.
Das war ein Befehl! Der Angriff Steiners war ein Befehl! Das Militär hat mich belogen! Niederträchtige, treulose Feiglinge!
Mein Führer, ich kann nicht zulassen, dass die Soldaten, die für Sie verbringen...
Nicht als Feiglinge! Verreiter, Versager!
Mein Führer, was Sie da sagen, ist ungeheuer!
Jahren alle höheren Offiziere liquidieren zu lassen, wie Stalin! Verräter! Es wurde ein ungeheurer Verrat geübt am deutschen Volke! Mit ihrem eigenen Blut werden sie bezahlen! Sie werden es saufen in ihrem eigenen Blut! Unmöglich unter diesen Umständen zu führen. Tun Sie, was Sie wollen. Der Krieg ist verloren.